What's up, guys? Kevin from the KO Sports Corner. This is Football in Florida. We are in the bye week of the Miami Dolphins season, and we have a special guest today, Sean. You guys may know him on Twitter for the crazy stuff he puts, all his content, great stuff. Takesweremade. Kenny, how are you, man? Excited to have
Um,
you back. The last time you were on, we were talking about this just before we started, was right after the Dolphins season. They had fired Brian Flores. We're talking about Tua being the future quarterback of this team if he was ready for that step. And you know, after all this time, they make all these signings, all these trades. Tua's in the MVP talks at this point. Takes, how are you, man? And we're excited to have you back on.
man, it's good
Great
to
to
be
have you.
back on, man. Thank you. It's really good to be back. Because I know if you're gonna watch this now, go back and just skim through the last episode I was on, and you're gonna hear like a very, very different tone from me this time. Because I was very down on the Dolphins, obviously after the catastrophic end to last season. Very, as probably as down as you can get on Tua. I was basically ready to ship him off. But I'm ready to eat some crow. I don't mind it. I'm always been a diehard Dolphins fan, and I'm very happy with Tua. But we'll get into all that.
Sean, what's up, man? What were your thoughts on that Browns Dolphins again?
It was glorious to see just finally stomping someone into the dirt. A 2/3 complete game. McDaniel is almost there. We'll just get a kicker and we'll have that team complete game he's been looking for. But it was nice to see the defense come up with some stops. The offenses pile on, and they've been doing that for weeks. And 3 games in a row of Tua with 3 touchdowns. I think we've got our guy. And when was the last time we were able to say that? Hasn't been this century.
Yep. So since we're in the bye week, we could finally make our first half assessment of the Miami Dolphins so far. Takes, this team is currently 7-3, first place in the AFC East, thanks to the Minnesota Vikings beating out the Buffalo Bills, and probably the game of the year. We could all agree with that crazy game.
Yeah.
So two was in MVP discussions. Tyreek Hill about to break records and most likely win Offensive Player of the Year. This team acquired Bradley Chubb. You have Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson as your running back duo. Compared to last season, you had Myles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmed. Takes, what are your thoughts on the 2022 Miami Dolphins so far this year?
I mean, where do I even start? Right. One of the biggest. I did a whole on the Fins or Die. We did a whole like preview episode, right? And as far as Tua goes, I set like a checklist of all the things I would need to see from him to be convinced that he was a franchise QB. And then I stated whether or not I thought he'd be able to do it, and I said no. I didn't think he would. I thought he would fall short of what I needed to see. And we're halfway through the year, and he's doubled every expectation I had, tripled it even. It's we one of the big narratives. A good friend, Finstant Reaction on Twitter, he was always saying we haven't had a top 10 offense in 20 plus years. Like that's how long it's been, and now we're like top 5, top 3 even. Like it's one of the most explosive offenses in the NFL, and it's proven that it can score quick, slow, however you want it to score, they can do it. And now with the addition of Jeff Wilson, with a healthy offensive line, look, everyone knows I'm kind of wild on Twitter, so I'll be nice. Liam Eichenberg suffered an injury, but without him, the offensive line has gotten better. And you kind of be lying if you said you weren't expecting that, right? Because he was having a pretty shitty first half of the season. Offensive line is playing great. And then on top of that, Tua has my favorite trait of his is his pocket presence, his top 2, top 3 in the league. So you combine that with good offensive line play, and he's going to have all day to throw. The weapons Tyreek has, I mean, so much for Tyreek not being the same without Mahomes. I mean, he's better without Mahomes, and that's just kind of like the facts when you look at the numbers. The defense has regressed, but at the same time, we saw improvement last game, right? I've been wanting to see, kind of like Sean mentioned, right, that perfect game where we route a team. And every time we do a preview episode on Fins or Die, I say today, this is the week, this is the week, this is the week. On the last preview episode we did for the Browns, I said we were going to lose, and I said we weren't going to have our perfect game because I was going to be in attendance. And surely enough, they had their best game of the season, and they absolutely demolished the Browns. So, I mean, dude, our first 7-3 start since 2001. We're in first place in our division with a couple games bouncing our way on Sunday in a bye week without even leaving our couch. We could be first in the AFC. We could be talking about a potential bye week in the playoffs, which is crazy to me to even think about, which would be huge, right? We, of course, we know that how brutal. If you look at all the teams that we could travel to play, the Ravens, the Titans, the Patriots, the Bills, the Bengals, all of those teams play in cold weather, and it would be much better to have them come to us in Miami and play in 90-degree weather in January. So it's been a great first half of the season, man. It really has.
And before I get to Sean here, you have to look at what's coming up for the Dolphins. You have the Texans, which is arguably the worst team in the NFL. But then after that, it doesn't get much easier for you. You play San Francisco. You have to play the Chargers, who, they're a pretty good team on paper. They've been hampered by injuries. And then you have to go to Buffalo, I believe, and play Buffalo, the Buffalo Bills, who have been on a losing streak. They lost to the Jets. They lost to the Vikings, but still one of the best teams in the AFC, one of the best teams in NFL. Then you have to play the Packers, Patriots, and end it off with the Jets. So you basically kind of have to beat your division out here to claim that first seed. And everyone's in it at this point for them in the AFC East. You look at the Patriots; they're probably the most out of it. But the Jets have been pretty damn good this year. When you look at it, guys, I mean, they beat the Dolphins, they beat the Bills, and they've been playing some good football. Sean, when you look at this schedule, what stands out to you most? I mean, just to read it out quickly: Texans, San Francisco, Chargers, Bills, Packers, Patriots, Jets.
Well, they're probably going to be in a position to control their own destiny. And that's the crazy thing. At this point, by the last time at this point in the season, I've been able to care about playoff seeding, and other than can they get the 6th or the 7th seed on there. I mean, like I was younger than you, Kevin. It's been a minute since that's been an issue. With the schedule coming up, you got to think we can pencil in that Texans game as a win. Then 8-3. You're feeling great about that. They're the worst against the pass. They're the worst against the run. They're just terrible in every respect. So they should not be able to stop us, particularly at home. And just to make sure, I think we got to get Takes out there for another game. We can get a GoFundMe going or something. It's just get Dolphin. You can't miss a home game after that showing against the Browns. I'm a little worried about the Niners game. I mean, I'm just really curious to see how that goes. I mean, I think we'll spend a week arguing if Kyle Shanahan's going to know how to solve Mike McDaniel, or if Mike McDaniel's going to know how to solve Kyle Shanahan, and just be the battle of coaches there. And then we've got Tua versus Herbert. I'm sure Twitter will be very quiet about that. And yeah, I'm not the Jets. I would like to think we can get some revenge. We're there for Tua's undefeated when he starts and finishes the game. So yeah, I'm not too sweating that one. Buffalo, but I'm prepared to lose. But I think we should be able to at least go 4-3. 3 the rest of the way, and we'll be in great shape.
What's really intriguing about that span of games, and I don't mean the Texans. To me, the Texans is part of this last span of games we played with, these kind of shitty teams, but that next stretch of games, if you had to rank all the hardest games, they're all road games. It's at Buffalo, it's at San Francisco, it's at LA, and it's at New England. I get it. The Jets are pretty good, and they will be coming down here. I think the Jets are kind of fraudulent. If I had to, don't get me wrong, they're a good team, and they really, really have improved. I don't want to take anything away from that, but the whole 6-3, they remind me of Tua's rookie year or last year Dolphins, where they had they were pretty good and everyone was like, whoa, watch out for them. But ultimately they're going to run into a buzzsaw and something's going to happen to them. But all those 4 games, they're on the road and they're in places where, one of the questions, if you had any questions about Tua, is the end of season games where he can clinch playoff spots, right? He hasn't done well the first year in Buffalo, last year in Tennessee. This year, he has a couple chances to redeem himself in those colder weather games in positions to clinch playoff spots. And that's, if I had any other questions left about him, that's it, because he's proved everything else to me. So I really want to see how he and this team and McDaniel perform in a game when a team really throws everything at him.
Yep. So the next thing I want to get into is what have been the biggest differences in 2021 to 2022? I mean, obviously, the first one is obviously new coach. Tua was a lot better. All of that stuff, but Takes, if you want to go a little bit more into depth on those differences 2021 to 2022, because there is a lot, and you could even argue that the defense has kind of gotten a little bit worse from 2021. That was the strong point for this Miami Dolphins team last season. If there was something you could rely on last season, it was that Dolphins defense, because obviously Tua did have an okay year, wasn't the greatest, but that was not what you were relying on offense. Again, you were relying on the defense, and it even looked early on in the season with the Patriots. game that this would be once again a team that would be relying on their defense, but that has not been the case whatsoever.
No, it hasn't at all. It was dangerous coming into this season. You know, the whole Byron Jones lingering injury. Xavier Howard is getting older, whether we like it or not. I'm so used to seeing him be this primetime defensive back. And it seems like every game now there's one or two plays where he's just in the wrong spot, but he's still really good. He still is really good. I'm not taking away from him. The Trill Williams injury, the Brandon Jones injury, obviously Byron Jones injury. There's been a ton of injuries in that secondary. Nick Needham, sorry, I almost forgot him. A lot of injuries that are piling up in that secondary. One of the biggest things I wanted to see was Tua win in spite of the defense. And we've seen that several times this year already, right? We saw it in the Ravens game where he's the one that led us back to victory with the offense. We saw it in the Bears game where he led us back and won. Yeah, a throw there in the end that could have put it away. But all things considered, without Tua in the offense, we don't win that game. We saw it in the Lions game. Without Tua in the offense, we don't win that game. So you're starting to see it, right? As far as the offense goes, right? Because it's the most drastic change. Yes, the defense has regressed, but the offense going from bottom 5 offense in the league to top 5 offense in the league, that's not normal. That doesn't happen. And everyone loves because Tua's easy to pile on, right? In terms of like NFL media. It's not one thing. Tua has made a significant leap. He worked hard as hell in the offseason, busted his little ass, and did everything he could to become a better quarterback. We got Tyreek, who's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. We got McDaniel, who's an offensive genius. We got Teron Armstead to anchor one side of the offensive line. Jalen Waddle has improved. He's not just the same Jalen Waddle. He's improved. So it's not just one thing that boosted us. It's all these things meeting in the middle and turning us into the offense we see today. I hate the thing of without Tyreek, what's this offense? Without Tyreek, you saw what they did in the Browns game. The game plan was clear for the Browns. Try and take away Waddle and Hill down the middle and force him to throw outside the hash. And he did it. He did it. He still completed the passes to Tyreek, to Sherfield, to Waddle. So he's proving that it's like, stop making me seem like all I can do is just throw to Tyreek, because I can pick you apart however I want. And the offense, how did McDaniel adjust? He ran for almost 200 yards with Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. So it's a coach that's adjusting to things he sees. It's a quarterback that's adjusting to things he sees. And it's wide receivers that are finding ways to succeed even when they're planning against them. So that's the biggest change to me is the offense. It's not just throwing it all on Tua and being like, Tua, figure it out. It's the coach. It's everyone is seeing something from their own perspective and making it work. It's a thing of beauty. To me, it's like watching like a play, right? Especially being Dolphins fans. What have we seen the past 20 years? It's like the most creative thing we saw was Ronnie Brown throwing a touchdown versus like the Patriots. Like other than that, it's kind of just been like, you go back to the Tannehill era and it was Tannehill just running out there. He's like, well, I'm going to just either sling it down the field to Kenny Stills or put it in Jarvis Landry's hands and hope he can do something. There was a 4-week span where it was like Jay Ajayi just break everyone's neck. Now you're seeing something where it's like, they have every which way they can just take you apart. And to me, that's the biggest difference. It's just a cohesive unit.
Yeah, and this is probably the best offense we've seen. Just extremely balanced overall.
Absolutely.
And you're not using Mike Gesicki that much, but when you do, it works. And that's the other guy we have to name, because I know we've been hearing the trade rumors, all of that stuff. He's on the franchise tag, but he is someone who's been very effective as well, and wanted to give him a quick shout out. Sean, I think we have to talk more about Tua, because he's been so damn good this season. Tua for MVP? Is that something that we really, really have to start talking about more week by week, Sean?
He's definitely in the race. He's right there. I will say that if I would love to see it, this award usually goes to a quarterback, but if Tyreek stays on track for the season he's having, if he breaks Calvin Johnson's receiving record, if he is the new NFL receiving yardage record at the end of the season, then I think maybe you've got to think about giving him the award on there, because he's had such a transformative effect on this offense. He's like the dynamic player. If we made this player versus player, for a difference in the team, then he's just opened so much up. And on the defensive side, it kind of is Byron Jones, right? He's with their so much of pull that away, and the defense has just really collapsed. But Tua, he's really come alive, firing away at Waddle. If Waddle's covered, firing away at Hill. We saw Sherfield catch that beauty touchdown in the end zone. He threw passes to 8 different receivers, last week. He's distributing the ball all over the field, efficient as hell. He's right there with Mahomes, and he's played 3 less games, and he's still close to all these guys in touchdowns. So I think he deserves to be in it right till the end. I'd love to see him get it, but if Tyreek for MVP, if he actually breaks the record.
Yeah.
I think worst case scenario, what we're looking at, because I think Mahomes is just having such a great season.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where Mahomes for the next 20 years, you can realistically make a case for him to win it every year. And I think the committee will just kind of get bored and be like, let's give it to someone else, because if we're just going to give it to him every year, what's the point? But I think worst case scenario, you end up with Tua second in MVP voting and Tyreek in third. And that's a pretty damn great place to be, is to have 2 offensive players, in the MVP voting. But I think it'll take a Mahomes kind of like disaster game or something like that for Tua to really jump into it. But he is in that conversation. And considering where we were last year, where I was last year with him, like, it's crazy to see.
Oh yeah, but I was ready for the trade to come. I didn't, I was way out on who, but there were plenty of this point in time. There were plenty of whiny quarterbacks that seemed to want out of their situations. Like,
yes,
well, maybe we'll get Wilson, maybe we'll get Murray, maybe we'll get Rodgers, and we've got draft picks to burn, and but it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to get to next. I want to get to the impact signings and moves Chris Greer's made, because we have to grade some of these guys. Tyreek Hill, Bradley Chubb, and we'll mention Chase Edmonds. He got traded. Thanks, we could thank him for giving us Bradley Chubb. You have Jeff Wilson, Ray Mostert. Takes, what have been your thoughts on the moves Chris Greer's made this offseason and how they've panned out? Because I guess you could even mention Cedric Wilson. That's been a little bit of a disappointing signing, because now you have Trent Sherfield, as we've mentioned, who's really arose in this offense. And then I guess that third receiver behind Tyreek and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I mean, even the Cedric Wilson signing, I'm not like upset about it, because at the time, most people liked it as like a third wide receiver. Like, no one was complaining. No one expected Sherfield to really like thrive this much. Like, he just fits the system, and I'm not going to fault Greer for that. Jeff Wilson is one of like my favorite players in the league as a running back. Like, it's just something before the season started, if you go all the way back to the preview episode we did on Fins or Die, I said, like, Jeff Wilson, I can see him being on this team because he was a free agent. And I said, Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson are free agents both at the same time. I wouldn't be shocked if both of them end up as Dolphins before the season. They ended up with Raheem Mostert, and then halfway through the season, Niners get McCaffrey. They have no purpose for Wilson, and now he's with the Dolphins, and we're making use of him. Teron Armstead, I always, because people like to say, the offense is great when Tua is playing. The offense is great when Hill is playing. People need to start giving that man his respect, because Teron Armstead is as surefire lock as it gets at left tackle. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever. Sometimes I just catch myself watching him pass block. The most boring thing in all of sports is watching a guy grab another guy and just not let him through. And I find myself just watching it. I love the video. Like, I go on Twitter Monday mornings and I'm like, I'm ready for it. And it's all the film buffs with their all 22 footage. And then they're like, look how Teron Armstead manhandled this guy. It makes him look like a toddler. And it's just him grabbing an edge rusher by the neck and just being like, get the fuck away from my QB. Like, I love him. I love him. I love him. I love him. And it was kind of the cherry top on top of our offseason. If I had one like nitpicky little thing, because that's what it seems like at this point, is nitpicking Chris Greer, because he's had a great offseason, it would be some sort of depth signing in the secondary. Yeah. Right. Because we are to a point where it's not ideal to have Justin Bethel playing cornerback. Kader Kahu has turned out to be, he's one of the best rookie defensive players in the league, and he was undrafted. Yeah. Right. That's like obviously huge. And that's great by the scouting department, Greer, McDaniel, all of them. They deserve all the credit in the world for that. But we can't also say it was smart to depend on an undrafted free agent to be this good, and I'm not, again, I can't play both sides on it. He's been amazing, and it turned out to be the correct decision. But I would be lying if I said I wouldn't have liked some sort of depth signing or trade for a cornerback there just to help out, because they went with Mackenzie Alexander, and it's like the next day he was just, I don't even know if I don't know if that was a Mandela effect. Like, I don't know if I actually saw him traded to us or signed, because I don't know where he is anymore. I think he's just gone from the face of the earth. Like, so that's the only nitpicky thing I would say. But that trade for Bradley Chubb was the type of trade you see the McVay Rams make, the Bills make, the Chiefs make, where it's like, let's just swing for the fences. Our defense is pretty shitty. Bradley Chubb isn't just going to save it, but he can be the guy where in an AFC championship game or wild card game, divisional game, in the fourth quarter, he comes up with a key sack that clinches the game, and that will be worth every draft pick, every penny of an extension, all of that. Like we see it all the time in the playoffs where a guy's just quiet the entire game and then a star comes forward and makes a play. And I can see that. I just manifested in my head Bradley Chubb sacking, Ryan Tannehill or something in a playoff game and sealing a victory for us. So Chris Greer, I mean, A, not an A+ because the secondary, but that's it. Like A.
Yeah, Sean, I want to ask you basically the same question, and I'm glad Takes mentioned Keter Kohu. I really haven't heard of many defensive rookies have a good season like Keter Kohu. Do you think maybe he gets some attention for defensive rookie of the year?
That'd be great, but I think we all know that's going to be Sauce Gardner at the Jets.
Yeah.
There's another corner getting that award.
The fact that he's even in the conversation with Sauce Gardner is what's like mind-blowing to me. You're talking about a top 10 pick and an undrafted free agent. I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, other years, absolutely. But no, he's running away with it now. Dolphins are kind of starting to maybe become a bit of a cornerback factory, though. I mean, they developed Nick Needham, and now, now Kohu. So they're getting production there. They're definitely maximizing it. It's very heated them to find these no-name guys and teach them how to play physical defense. But I think my issue would be the same. And it was definitely a bit of a gamble to just assume that the defense wouldn't lose a step at all and that no one would get hurt. And then everything would be fine. With there, nothing to see here. And obviously, that has been a little problematic. I mean, I wanted them to trade for secondary help, I think in week 4, and it's like, oh, okay, so we're a good team, but Byron Jones isn't back yet. Let's trade for somebody. With there, and then just injury by injury. I would have loved to see something there, but we're picking nits. All the Greer has touched is magical.
All right, to wrap it up, and then I want to talk some Glenn Geffner to end it off, but quickly, Takes. The Dolphins keep winning. They're on this 4-game win streak. We expect them to win a lot more games this season. Does this start to become a Super Bowl or bust type season for the Dolphins?
Man, I would be lying if I said my expectations don't go up almost every week of watching this team, right? Because
that's why I asked.
I want you to think of it like this. We started the season with a really good roster and question marks at certain positions, like quarterback. And now we're at a point where the question marks are all defense related and kicker related, which send Jason Sanders to Russia. I don't want to see him anymore. Goddamn, he sucks. But anyways, they are a top 3 offense in the league. They have a top 2 offense in the AFC. I think we have a better offense than the Bills. And I know that a lot of people may go crazy about that, but I do think that if you consider all those things and you consider where we are record-wise right now, we should be able to win our division. Like, we are that good of a team where even with that crazy 6-game stretch, we should be able to go 4-2 on it and have a chance of winning our division. Yep. When you consider all those things, how much of a letdown would it be to just lose in the first round, right? To an inferior wild card opponent like the Bengals or, the Titans. Like, losing to those teams would set me off. Like, it wouldn't be like that wouldn't meet my expectations. You don't just have a top 5 offense in the league. You don't just trade for defensive star and then lose in the first round. That is falling short. I'm at the point, honestly, where I've think my expectation is an appearance in the AFC Championship game. And I know it may be high, but I think that's how you put yourselves like on a trampoline, on a pedestal, or on a platform to set yourselves up for next year, right? Because what is everyone saying about the Bills this year? Super Bowl or bust. Why? Because they lost in heartbreaking fashion to the Chiefs. It's you got to get there, right? Like, you have to set the bar for yourself and then pass it the next year. If the Dolphins lose in an AFC Championship game thriller to the Chiefs, it's normal to pencil them in as an AFC Championship game appearance next year, and all we have to do is beat the Chiefs to get to a Super Bowl. I think whatever team comes out of the AFC is going to win it this year. The NFC is a disaster, so I won't even touch on them. But that's my I like to set the bar high and I think they've set the bar high themselves. You don't just trade away all your first round picks and mortgage your entire future for a first round exit. So if their standards are just as high, then mine are going to be high too. I think an AFC Championship game appearance is my bar. And then anything after that, I mean, I'm just popping champagne and pots and pans out there. I'll be crazy.
Alrighty. You have something quick, Sean?
Playoff win for me. It's been too long, too damn long since I've seen
That's
them win a
fair.
playoff game.
Yeah.
Lamar Smith running it down the Colts' throat. It's the last time it happened, and I've got to see that happen again in my adult lifetime. I would like the Dolphins to win a playoff game. They do that this year, then I'm set.
I
To sign for
remember
more next
I was
season.
the last time I remember a Dolphins, of course, the Matt Moore game, after Tannehill got hurt. I remember that. But I remember the year I was the most high on them, and it was because I was just a naive little lad. It was against the Ravens with Chad Pennington. And I remember I was so like superstitious and nervous that I wore the same outfit I wore the week before. And I was like 10 or something. I don't know how old I was. I was definitely 12.
I think I did that too, and I was
yeah.
older.
Yeah. And I remember we were down like 17 with like 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And I remember looking over at my dad, and he was like upset, sad. And I was like, Dad, come on, like we got this. We can come back. And I remember him looking at me and just being like, you have so much hope in your eyes. And like, you don't know that we're just not as good as this team. Like that's just not going to work. So it feels weird to feel this confident. I've never felt this confident before in a Dolphins team. The last time I came close was that year that Tannehill was having a really great year before he tore his ACL against the Cardinals. That year, I was like, we could win a playoff game and maybe even go further. But then Matt Moore came in, and I was just like, it's not the same.
You would have thought they would have beat Pittsburgh that year if they had Tannehill.
I would have put it past them. I would have given them a better shot. But everyone, back then that was like the whole thing of Matt Moore's better than Tannehill. And even as like a 16-year-old, I was like, shut the fuck up.
All right, quickly before we go to Glenn, Sean, Texans, Dolphins, quickly, MVP of the game, and who wins? Although I think we all see the Dolphins win, but yeah.
Oh, the Dolphins win, and I'm just we'll make it 4 for 4 in the 3 touchdown games from Tua on there. Tua's MVP, three TDs.
All right, takes.
I gotten a taste of it now, so I can't. Like, how am I not going to predict them to blow out the Texans? The Texans, the only thing they do good is run the ball. The only thing the defense does good is stop the run. They're going to force Davis Mills to pass it. I predict 3 picks by Davis Mills. I predict a 30-plus point performance by the Dolphins and a sub-17-point performance by the Texans. MVP can be Cater Kahoo with his first pick 6.
Attaboy. All right, there we go. And I'll go Dolphins win. They'll blow it out as always. And I'm going to go... I'll go Mike Gesicki with the MVP quickly. And all right, we could lower down the mood a little bit because we have to talk about what happened yesterday with the Marlins. The Marlins did not renew Glenn Geffner's contract to return for the 2023 MLB season, a.k.a. they fired him. Sean, what are your quick thoughts? We have 4 minutes, and then I'll go to takes.
We're like Charlie Brown and Lucy with the football of this team. They do something to make you happy, and then they just yank it out of you from under you. We hear Jeff Conine's coming back today.
Oh yeah, and quickly, let's talk about Conine quickly. While you're at it,
that's just to make up for it yesterday by ripping away our beloved announcer. I guess quickly, just the problem is that they know they've got us. They could jerk us around as much as they want, and we're still gonna tune into the games and watch and be fans. Because some little focus study said that maybe they'll get 3% more fans or turn on the radio as someone mentions 2 less stats in the course of the broadcast. And that's, I don't know, $1,000 more bucks in Sherman's pocket. And here we are on there. But there's no excuse for the move. Really disappointing. Amazing that they would do it on Sandy Cy Young Day. Like, of course, they couldn't even let us just enjoy that whole day. They had to do that to us yesterday. And it's just another short-sighted move in a long history of short-sighted moves.
Yep. Takes your thought on Conine and Geffner.
Man, when I think Marlins baseball, a big part of like my story with Marlins baseball is car rides home with my dad after practices or going to work with him in the summer. And a big part of that is Glenn Geffner and Dave Van Horn. Right. It was the picture painted in my head by Glenn Geffner every game day of, the road team wearing the road grays and all that stuff, just everything. Like, it was perfect. It was perfect. And them just letting him go, it doesn't sit well with me. It kind of sucks. Like, I still listen to games on the radio. I work Thursday nights. I work nights a lot, and part of that is just listening to the radio, listening to the games on my headphones, and it's a big part of that. And look, I've heard that people have been saying Kyle Seeloff is going to take over. I love Kyle Seeloff. I do. I really, really do. We've talked before. He's a fantastic guy, and I'm rooting for him. But Glenn Geffner is just like my child. Like, it's just like you just ripped him away from all of us, right? And it sucks. And it's like Sean references, it's like, hey, like, what can we do? Like, you know, we don't have a big fan base, but the fan base we have is kind of ripping us to shreds for Glenn Geffner. It's like, oh, well, you know, let's just bring back Jeff Conine. And then it's like, oh, well, everything's fixed. Like, we have Jeff Conine again. And then in a month, Jeff Conine, like, will be fired or some shit. Like, knowing how this organization works, who knows what they're going to do next. But it sucks, you know, and Glenn is a great dude. Glenn is, he just loves baseball and loves Marlins baseball. Like, he got to know every single athlete. It felt like every player of the Marlins loved him and he loved them back. You know, like, it was personal when Glenn Geffner was calling games, and that's not easily replicated. So if Glenn ever hears this, Glenn, thank you so much for like molding me into the Marlins fan I am today, which may or may not be a good thing, but but just know that like he was part of so many of our like childhoods and teenagehoods and even adulthoods. So losing Glenn does suck, and I wish nothing but the best for him moving forward. I really do.
Yeah, that's the Glenn, and thank you very much.
Yes.
And this is where we will wrap it up because we have less than a minute left. From Sean, from Takes. Once again, as always, thank you for hopping on, and we'll definitely have you back, maybe to preview the playoffs. Who knows? But for myself, Sean, Takes, we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out. Go Fish and go Fins.